Alright, welcome back to the shop. My little brother had found this fan for me, and it is in really rough shape. It's got, it doesn't spin very freely, and, is in disrepair, but this is just straight up neglect. The whole thing has been just out in the elements or something. It's super rough, but let's take it apart, clean it up, and see if we can't get it to work again. Alright, so I've got it all disassembled now. That was sort of a chore in the sense that, these screws were really in there, and I was trying as hard as I could to get them out without stripping them, and luckily I was able to get them all out. But I had to use the impact gun, and sometimes when the screws are really stuck, that jarring action goes a long way, and I didn't want to heat up I've got a MAP gas torch, and when you heat things up, that usually works, but I didn't want to melt any of the little remaining insulation that's in here, so I sort of try to stay away from that. These appear to be bolted in there, and I'm not sure that I want to really proceed too far into disassembling this at this point in time. I'm going to try to clean it up with this electrical motor cleaner, and this is a little different than brake parts cleaner. Is a little bit more it's a little harsher, and it might strip the varnish off the insulation that's on these parts. So I'm going to use this, and the insulation I'm talking about is, they dip these motors typically. They have this red insulating varnish that sort of actually insulates these wires from one another. So anyway, I'm just going to try to clean it up and then probably reassemble this and see if I can get it to work before I really start cleaning anything up too much. So, or start painting or any of that stuff, because I don't know if this is going to work. So. Alright, so this thing is, sort of freaking me out, but I got it to work. It was really seized up, and the insulation is just like chowder in there. I can't believe it still works, but... Alright, so the fan works, the motor works, it doesn't shock me, surprisingly. I'm gonna have to replace these wires, like, from here out. But, anyway, I guess what I need to do now is start cleaning this base up, and I don't know how much of this or if any of it's going to be able to be saved, but Alright, so I've got the motor wired up. I've got some RTV sealant here at the joint in case those wires, in case the insulation ever breaks the RTV sealant, it will act like an insulating barrier. I've just got some of this wrap, this Chinese finger trick kind of wrap going over the new wires here to sort of give it an old-timey look. The drive mechanism seems to function just fine, so I wire wheeled it and cleaned it up. I'm not sure how I'm going to finish this, if I'm going to paint it or maybe just leave it steel colored. I really don't know yet. But the rest of the fan is out drying now, so when we come back next time, I'm going to be assembling this, I guess. So. Alright, welcome back to the shop. Today I'm still working on this old fan. I think it's an Emerson. And right now I've sort of got the fan back together, and I don't think I'm going to paint this section. It just sort of, it's not being lazy, but it just sort of doesn't look that bad, and I'm not really sure how to get into it. But anyway, it had this nichrome wire 3-speed switch on here, and it was just, you know, so beat up, and the nichrome wires messed up, and this whole thing is a, I guess, compressed asbestos block, and I don't want to mess with the asbestos. So anyway, I'm going to just avoid it, and I went out and bought this fan switch. So this is just the regular run-of-the-mill fan switch. I have to figure out some way to adapt it so that you can change the speed on it. But I think this is going to be far safer in terms of the other nichrome wire was the resistive measure. This is going to also apply some resistance, I imagine. But it's not some open housing that's just waiting to catch lint and dust and start a fire. So anyway, I'm assuming that this should work. I've got it wired up correctly, I think. We will try it. It is off. 1, 2, 3, 4 doesn't seem to work. 3 is low. 2 is faster. 1 is high speed. So that's sort of interesting. Anyway, I'll just go ahead and try to orient this so that the 1, 2, 3, and 4 aren't going to matter, because there's going to be a 1, 2, and 3 on the housing. You won't be able to see this switch at all. So let's work on trying to get that adapted to the housing. Alright, I've started down a path that I don't think is going to be successful, but you know, sometimes just trial and error is how I go about doing things. So, you know, and that's not helpful for the YouTube channel stuff, because I understand most people that watch this stuff want to figure out how to do something and do it correctly. But, you know, in my particular case, at least for my channel, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just sort of figuring it out as I go, and I'm just going to work with what I got. You know, I'm not trying to be... I want to get this thing functional again, and, you know, maybe make some improvements along the way. And messing with the, you know, the asbestos and nichrome wire and all that other stuff. If I was a real purist, I would care about that, but yeah, I'm not a purist. I don't care about this, other than the sense I want to get it working, and I'd like to have it look somewhat decent when I'm done with it. But right now, I've sort of started down this path trying to adapt this fan switch to it, and I'm not sure how I'm going to reconcile the fitting here. My first goal is to try to get it sort of seated in here, and I've disassembled the works here and wrapped the outside with some insulating tape, and now I'm going to sort of situate this in here like I think it should be situated, and I'm going to hot glue it in place. And that hot glue will give me the opportunity to come back and yank this thing back out if I'm unhappy with, you know, where I'm going. And if it does work out, I'll come back later on with some really good some epoxy, some 2-part epoxy, and make this more permanent. But again, I'm just sort of goofing around, trial and error. And I'm not sure how I'm going to progress. So anyway, got the hot glue gun heating up now, and then we'll see if I can't figure out a way to make this all work. Alright, so I've got the switch. I've used a couple pieces of sash chain and that allows me to come back and move the fan switch. I'm going to need to cut this off to length once I find the right knob for it, but it's not ideal, but it works. So anyway, let me get the rest of this assembled. Alright, so here's my little Emerson fan. Let's see if that works better. Alright, so here's... It's got the new switch. And it seems to work pretty good, so... The oscillating, there was two different motions on the oscillating. There was gotta watch my fingers here. On the far outside of the eccentric that goes around in the back, I was getting, you know, quite a bit of motion very quickly, and the degree of oscillation was about the same. However, it was, well, I mean, it was a little bit more pronounced, but it was really fast. So so I moved the pin in. Let me turn it in and turn it off and show you. So there's like adjustment pins. If I had it on the outside pin here, it went around much faster. Now, the top of this has a couple little oil holes in it. Hopefully you can see this. But right here is this oil hole, and I've been using this felt material. You just cut it off and shoved it down in the hole because I thought there was going to be all sorts of, like, it's a ripe opportunity for grit and grease to fall down in on the journal. Of course, I don't want that to happen, and I think that, this is just conjecture on my part, but I believe that the felt will do two things. One, it'll slow the rate of the oil that's going down inside this motor and help hold it in there and wick it out over time, as opposed to it just shooting through. And then two, it's going to capture whatever particulate's going to land there. Not that that's going to shorten the life of this fan or anything, but, you know, in theory, that's the thing. I don't have the can for it anymore. I threw it out, but this has got a gray oil in it. It's a high moly lubricant. It's actually an engine additive, but the molybdenum that's in that is supposed to be a great lubricant, and that's mixed with just some regular old straight 30 weight oil. You know, I understand if some of you are going to give me grief about not going through and sanding and painting the outside of this fan. You know, I don't think I could have. Everything is so delicate in here. I was just afraid that if I took the armature out, that it would have been the you know, this thing is already in the winter of its life here. I don't want to, you know, push it over the edge and fix it to death, so to speak. So I chose to just leave it alone. I'm going to probably take some of the CRC. This is effectively Cosmoline, and I'm going to shoot this. Some of the back housing here and stuff, and you can see the Northwind emblem on it. And the Cosmoline, the reason I'm going to use it, let me get it and I'll bring it back. Alright, a couple videos ago I went and tested some different rust protective things, and the worst was the carnauba wax. So I just went ahead and wiped it off and then hit this section with the Cosmoline, and you can see that the bow shield, you know, sort of gave up. The paste wax is sort of okay. The silicone and Teflon, really no difference. This was straight polished, and this was a control. So you can see that there was the paste wax, you know, which was my favorite for a while, pales in comparison to the Cosmoline. So that's really good stuff. Alright, now I know that there's probably a large percentage of the people watching this right now want me to put a hot dog in here. I can't bring myself to do it. I mean, I have hot dogs, but it just doesn't, you know, I just can't bring myself to do it. Because what's the best case scenario? Either one, it cuts the hot dog, or two, it like wrecks my fan. And if it wrecks it, I'd just be so disappointed. So anyway, I think I'm gonna not put the hot dog in here. So anyway, thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and I hope you all have a great evening. Alright, for the two of you still watching this thing, oh no, the camera came out of the stand. This is my next fan project. It's gonna be a nice one. This is a big GE. I mean, it's monstrous. It's, I think, 16 inches or so, but it is in really rough shape. It turns. The motor might be in better shape, but anyway, this will be a fun one, and I'll try to. I don't know what I'll try to do. But anyway, I'm going to completely go soup to nuts on this one. I'm going to do this one as nice as I possibly can. The other one was just sort of an intern project. So anyway, I'm looking forward to this one, but it's going to be a week or two, maybe 3 weeks out before I really get into this thing. So anyway, thanks again.